So I wanted to first introduce myself because I am new to the SOSV Chinaccelerator community. I'm a mentor starting this year, similar with the batch that just went in, batch 19. So I'm 30 days in, so just wanted to start with an introduction and a question to this audience. So if we can go to the next slide. All right. 3 notable icons or notables. Raise your hand if you know who the purple dinosaur is. Yeah, maybe a few. Okay, wow. Okay, not too many. Not internationally known. Raise your hand if you know who this Grammy-winning R&B young female singer. Okay, not too many either. Okay, but we will keep going on. And to the far, I think this is your right, female politician, all extraordinaire female first lady. Yes? Okay, all right. So I'm just going to ask the question, what do these 3 icons have in common? Anyone want to venture a guess? Anything? They have great smiles. They're all maybe female. We don't really know if Barney's male or female. All right. What's that?
They're all American.
They're all American? Maybe. Yeah, that's a good guess. All right, well, I'll tell you the answer. The reason why I put them on here is these were characters in my career at the year 2000. Okay, so that's a long time ago. Oscar just said, you know, I have 20 years of experience in this industry. These were in 2000. I had just come out of college, a couple of years out of college, and I started working at a advertising company, division within the advertising company, which was their venture investment division, started by a ex-Hollywood agent. And he brought with him a lot of contacts and notable lists. And we did a lot of very interesting projects at the time. So one of the ones that I really vividly remember was the project where I was responsible for helping launch the interactive Barney. And what that was a doll that basically took a chip where I helped to source that chip. I traveled to Taiwan, we met with a chip manufacturer and figured out sort of how to get that chip into the doll. And then I led the team that built the assembly language to connect the doll to your laptop, download your child's name, their favorite song, and their birthday. And then what Barney would end up doing, as you press his finger or press his palm, he'd sing, "I love you, you love me." Anyone else know how? Be family. So that's what he ended up doing, and that was one of my most memorable projects kind of back in the day when I was working with a startup. So with the Hollywood agent and his notables, we did a lot of interesting things like built star websites. So we built the site that launched Alicia Keys' career. At that time, she was 19. Clive Davis had just become very familiar with her and said she is the next big thing. And so we launched AliciaKeys.com. And then on the far right, former First Lady, US First Lady, she was getting ready to launch her Senate run in 2000. And so she came to our offices, she walked around, big smile, shook our hands, stared very intently into each of our eyes, and she says, you know, I'm gonna get this, you know, first role. And that's really her entry into government, into, you know, kind of her first statesmanship. So that's a little bit of my history, kind of how I got started with startups. Then fast forward a couple of years, I then got my MBA, I got married, I then had 2 kids, and actually my husband and my kids are here with me today. They're probably the youngest startup entrepreneurs in the audience today, actually. But after I got married, I moved into a different career. And if we just go to the next slide, I started working for industries that were much more focused on protecting risk and protecting what I call the precious. right? So I started working for the financial industry, automotives, and right now where I am is in healthcare. And when you look at sort of the protecting the precious, right? Really, I started doing a lot of work working with health regulators and understanding sort of the guidelines and principles and regulations. It seems like it's a big kind of jump, but it was a change in my career that I found really sort of matched a bit of my personality in terms of like what I really was looking for. I really believe in creating standards and creating processes and operations. So that's really kind of how my mind works. So I started to work in these industries where protecting and understanding guidelines was really important. And I worked with the Food and Drug Administration across different global jurisdictions, the EU and America, the Food and Drug Administration. I worked on developing the standard XML language for us to submit submissions to the health authority. And then I also started to work on things like developing the new namespaces when the ICANN community came up with the new .x, right? So we had .coms, we had .nets, and then years ago they then opened it up and we created .space, .tv, .dot, right? So I've done a lot of kind of interesting work there around standards. So what I've really learned in terms of developing standards is really what it does is provide an ability for industries and businesses to really protect and create trust with their consumers, with the local governments, with their shareholders, and with customers, right? Because these standards really put the rigor in place that say our products are safe, right? We can trust that what we are getting meets a certain minimum, and that across borders, right, they meet a certain level of quality and rigor. And also what it does is allows for reliable, repeatable processes and overall, ability to kind of transfer a product from place to place and understand that there is a certain rigor that has been put into place around that. So given that, I think you might be wondering, so why is Vicky talking about this at a place where we're talking about startups and taking risks and failing fast, right? But what I really want to do is bring to this audience the story around some advice that I want to give to startups in terms of what you can prepare for with the limited resources and the limited time and maybe even the limited team, the small team that you have. What are the minimum things you need to do? And when you're selling to enterprises or you're a software as a service, what are the minimal things that those enterprises are willing to do and how they will partner with you? So if we go to the next slide. So let's start to talk about large enterprises and selling software as a service, right? So large enterprises have, have organizations like their IT organization, their compliance organization, and really those who are kind of playing roles of key decision makers, CIOs, CSOs, CTOs, right? Any executive in a position is really interested in understanding sort of what this team or this business is bringing, right? There might be a gap that they're trying to fill, processes that they're trying to build out, innovation that they're trying to bring on. And really, there is a need for startups and a need for entrepreneurs and founders to be able to talk to us. So I'll give you a story that I have around working with a social impact company. So really large companies, especially in kind of finance and pharma, are very interested in sort of social responsibility and the impact, the social impact we make to our communities and the environment. For us, employees really wanted to give back and really wanted to be able to either give back in money or give back in time. And so we were really interested in looking for a way to find a connection for our employees to give back. And so we had found an organization, it was a startup. We met with this founder. She was very passionate about the idea of putting skills and actually pro bono skills to help NGOs and nonprofits. So we brought her on, and you know, one of the real key things with her was she had immense passion and immense focus in this space, and she had worked with many other companies and many nonprofits to build up this network. And so for us, it was really about the focus that she brought to the table and the value and the minimal risk that we were taking because she had already established quite a reputation here. I would also say that while there was a lot of focus, I think there was also areas where we found that there were still gaps. And when you're working with a large enterprise, there's a lot of opportunity for co-development. I remember we brought her into the conference room with our CEO and our chief legal, our chief marketing, and she sat there, she was 24. She sat there, she gave her pitch, she told her story, she told us why she was building this company, and honestly, she left the room and everybody was so energized that she came in. She just brought so much energy and we said, yes, we're doing this. And it was really easy, right? And then it was my job to really kind of work with her to figure out kind of how that program was going to work. But there's a lot for startups to be able to kind of sell your story, really focus in on a specific area, and then be able to work with companies to sell your team, because we're looking as well to extend our team with expertise. And then my last slide, what I thought I'd just kind of cover from a risk space is the other part of my job is really focused on data privacy and working cross borders around data privacy. So I wanted to also just give some advice to teams around navigating and building trust when you're trying to build digital and mobile capabilities across borders, right? So, as you may know, 2016, the European Union issued the Gdpr Regulation, very focused on data privacy, very rigorous in terms of things that you need to put in place as a company, as a business, especially online, that says that you're protecting people's data, how you will use the data, that you're ensuring that the access is controlled, and that if a data subject or a citizen wants to take back their data, you make it really easy to do that. And if you think about it, that's not easy to do when you're like a very big organization with data like in all different places. So the European Union kind of set out that standard, and very quickly after that, many countries have followed on afterwards, right? So to be very relevant in the region that we're in, Taiwan, Thailand already has an impending one, and China, we're expecting to see the full regulation available in the third quarter of this year. So data privacy is really key, and for what I would say for most startups to be really thinking about in terms of getting ready to get online. First thing, make sure you're asking for permission to collect the data. Let them know what you're going to do with the data once you've collected it. Be really clear about the usage, where you will use it, how you will use it, who you will share it with, and then be super careful about that data when it crosses borders, especially if you're working in China, because there's a lot of sensitive data that cannot pass to other countries, especially on the personal health side of things, right? So even though you may be collecting a lot of data and a lot of the apps that you use collect your data, eventually the law will come in place, and you do need to be thinking about that. The last point there is just when you start to go in the mobile space and you start to look at sort of the apps that are available, it gets even harder to protect that data because we have so much of that personal information on our apps. So I am going to wrap it up there, because really what I wanted to share were just a few tidbits, a few kind of takeaways for everybody who's kind of thinking about going digital and working with large enterprises. There's a couple of key tips here, but I'd be happy to answer any questions or do any follow-up with you afterwards. All right, that's it for me.